So we might wonder whether animals have language. Animals definitely communicate. There's no question about that, right? Like bees communicate about where the flower is. A cat that hisses is communicating something. A cat that brushes up against you and meows is communicating something. But do they have language? A cat vocalizes, a bird vocalizes, a dog vocalizes, but is that language? The official answer is no, because language is about more than sounds and vocalizations. Those sounds have a specific meaning, right? Cup means this, right? And not that. But could mean it's a feeling, right? Meow is a feeling. We saw a video of a girl, Oksana Malou, who was raised by dogs, and I would love to know her thoughts on that because she was barking very proficiently. And the video that we saw also showed how she learned to do that, and it was through mimicry. The dogs barked, and she barked back. And we saw the same in that video about the researchers who tried to raise a chimpanzee with their own child, and their own child started mimicking the chimpanzee noises. I've sometimes, after I read this chapter, I wondered what would happen if I mimicked my cat's meows. So my cat meowed, and I might meowed back, and she'd meow again, and we had a pretty long meow conversation, but I have no idea what it meant. Among animals, we mostly see communication at certain times. Like usually it has something to do with mating or with aggression. Otherwise, they use some different ways of communicating that we don't use so much. Like we don't do so much communicating through smells. But other animals, for your dog, sniffing each other is definitely an important thing. I see a comment in the chat saying that when it comes to accents, after a certain period, learning different accents becomes extremely difficult. I agree. And then there's some people that have a knack for imitation, and they can imitate people and mimic them and copy their accents. And yes, so I mentioned that your dad lived in Germany for the first 20 years of his life, and it doesn't matter that he's been out of Germany for 30 years speaking English. He still has that heavy accent. And maybe he was past the critical period for learning the phonemes that you need to speak English. Maybe there's different phonemes in German. And when he's listening to English, he's not hearing some of our phonemes and he's not replicating them. And maybe that has something to do with the accent. When I was teaching English as an additional language to adult learners, it was hard to get them to hear the difference between like an L and a R sound. And I'd be super obvious with my face. I'd be like, no, be like, R. And I'd get them to do that until they were doing it and feeling the place and feeling the position of the mouth when making the word. Let's comment about cats. Cats are more likely to vocalize with humans than each other. And cats that aren't socialized with humans take a while to learn that they need to meow to get our attention. Yes, so cat meowing at us is a learned behavior in cats because they adapt to us to some extent, and we're very vocal, and so they vocalize more to communicate with us, and we reward them for doing that. So it's operant conditioning. But generally speaking, adult cats do not meow at each other. Kittens meow at their mothers. And if you have a pet cat, you're the mommy cat, right? And it's your kitten. Liam said that though he's Canadian, he picked up an Australian accent from a babysitter for a little while. And that shows the power of mimicry. I remember as a child, I had a British accent sometimes, and from my British family, and then that went away when I went to school. But when British family came to visit, it comes up and it's hard to suppress. It sounds kind of funny because it's mixed with a Canadian accent. So there have been attempts to try to teach language to non-human animals, and that's complicated by many factors. You need a big brain, and well, chimps and bonobos are pretty smart among the animals. They have their large brain. Some birds are very intelligent. So can we teach language to chimps and birds? Is there anyone that has a bird that they try to talk to? Any like parrot owners? I've never owned a bird, so I don't know what communicating with a bird is like. They can pick up some vocabulary. Right? They can learn some words. One issue is whether the animal has the vocal like apparatus to produce the word. We have humans just have a very unique kind of lip, tongue, and throat situation going on. We're actually more likely to choke and strangle and suffocate than other animals. And so chimps actually cannot form words with their mouths. Their mouths are just not built for making those sounds. And they can be taught sign language though. And they can learn some signs. There is an interesting case where a chimp was being taught sign language, a chimp named Washoe, I think it was. And Washoe had a trainer, I guess, or maybe it was a research assistant named, I think her name was Kate. And Kate was pregnant. And one day, Kate didn't sort of come back, right? She needed to go on leave. She needed to take a break. And when she came back, Washoe was kind of pissed at her, gave her the whole cold shoulder. Where have you been? And Kate was apparently able to sign that she had lost the baby. And Washoe responded by doing that. She made the sign for cry. And chimps actually don't cry. So that was a wow moment where people that challenged the assumptions that maybe chimps don't have empathy, because that seemed like an empathetic thing to sign. Ruby said, I used to talk to an African gray at the pet store, and it could say some words. Phoenix says, has anyone seen Amber the orangutan? I haven't, but I'd love to learn more. So there's kind of as that video we saw suggested, there's a difference between learning words, which is cool, shows some capacity for symbolic thought, and then learning how to properly string them together using grammar. And Jeannie wasn't able to learn grammar, but obviously Oksana was. Overall point is that language is overall a very uniquely human thing. I know that in a previous class, one of you, I think it was Liam, asked about, well, what about whale song and what about dolphins? And I need to look into that. Another amazing thing that humans do is read. Reading is amazing. It is incredible that, look what I have behind me. I have the textbooks that were written by my great-grandfather. And I can open these pages and read his thoughts, read the things he knew. And he died, I think, in the 70s. I never knew him. But because of writing, his thoughts are preserved. And you can go and read the ideas and thoughts of, Plato. Lived, what, like 3,000 years ago? That's incredible. Like reading and writing are an amazing thing that humans do. Learning to read and learning to write is very effortful, and there's probably critical and or sensitive periods for that too. Charlemagne, who is the king of France in, I think, the early Middle Ages, tried to learn to write his whole life and wasn't really able to get there. children slowly learn reading, slowly learn writing. And if you've ever worked with a child who's learning to read or write, you know how effortful it is, how they're going like letter by letter and sound by sound. It's a really intentional, conscious, effortful process. Same with like learning how to drive, same with learning how to ride a bike. And then you learn. And once you learn something really, really well. You can practice something to the point that it gets automatic. And now you can jump on a bike and get going, and you don't even really know how you're doing it, you're just doing it. And so we read automatically. We can't turn that off. If, I don't know, let's say somebody sent you a text that you shouldn't see, or you looked at somebody's phone and you shouldn't be seeing it, you don't choose whether you process that information or not. You just do. And there's some email signatures that, well, they either piss me off or make me laugh. Where in the email signature, it sort of says that, you know, if you're not the intended recipient, you shouldn't read the email. But like, to get to that, you have to read the email. There is an effect known as the Stroop effect that demonstrates how automatic reading is. And it demonstrates that through interference. So let me show you how that goes. I know what this effect is. And I'm still going to demonstrate it because the effect is so strong that I can't willfully fight it. But so in the control condition, we have words with different colors. And it's easy to read these words, right? Like rabbit, house, blanket, dance, flower, key, 7, dance, house, key, 7, flower, rabbit, blanket. That was easy. But now, what I'm gonna do is say the color of the word. So it doesn't matter that it's a rabbit. I'm looking for the color of the ink. So red house, red, orange, black, green, oh, some kind of green, purple, not 7, it's black. See what happened there? Blue, purple, green, orange, black, blue. See how much harder it was for me to ignore the word and focus on the color? Now, I'm going to really mess myself up because I'm going to try to read the color of the word while getting interference, even more interference than I was getting before. So green, orange, black, red, orange, red, purple, black, blue. I really want to say orange because that's what's going off in my head from the word. Okay, so those in the first control condition, you're seeing an interference effect where the word is still jumping out at me and I want to say that instead of the color. And now when in the Stroop interference condition, you make that massively worse by communicating color information in the word that really demonstrates that interference. Leon says, maybe my brain is weird, but that is not hard for me to do at all. You know, there is a great amount of human cognitive diversity. And every time I show something like an optical illusion in the class, there'll be some student who's like, I can't see that at all. And I think that, you know, there's things that general cognitive tendencies where maybe most people would see this kind of interference, but other people who have different cognitive profiles or skills might not. And you said maybe it's because you have ADHD. Maybe that's a disorder that causes it's a very different attentional profile, or people attend to information in different ways. Before we learn to read. There's assumptions that we make. We need to basically understand that there's meaning behind these chunks of letters, that they're words. We have to learn what direction to read in. In English, we go from left to right. I'm laughing. I mix up left and right a lot. And on my driver's test, I had to write R and L on my hand so that I would know which way to go. And the driving instructor said to turn left or right. I know there's this L trick where left has the L, but then I keep thinking, which L is it? I don't perform very well on those IQ test questions for spatial rotation. Anyway, you have to learn the alphabet. When kids go to school, before they're reading and writing, they're learning to sing the alphabet. They're learning this is an A, and this is a B, and this is a C. And they're learning how those letters correspond to certain sounds. Right? There's a lot of work that goes into reading and also into writing. Once we're reading fluently, we're not reading it letter by letter anymore. When you're reading automatically, you're recognizing words at the whole word level. However, sometimes you run into words that you haven't seen before, and then you go back to what you learned. You break it down and sound it out and figure it out. There are some programs, interventions that try to increase reading speed and reading comprehension. Right now, you're in a situation where maybe you feel flooded with things to read. And you might wonder, well, if you speed read, will you learn more? Generally not. Okay, the faster you read that is above 400 words per minute, the more your comprehension drops. Okay, so you might be reading faster but not understanding as much. That said, there are evidence-based strategies to help people read things really quickly. There was an issue in the Second World War where soldiers were being given big manuals and expected to read this overnight and learn it. People had to read material really quickly as part of the war effort. And in the 1930s, a psychologist, I think his name was Francis Robinson, had been working on reading comprehension. And then this became part of the war effort. What Francis Robertson developed was called the 3SQR method. And it's an evidence-based way to increase your sort of read quickly. It's the best way you can cram. And here's how you would do it. It takes advantage of certain memory principles. So let's say you have a chapter in a textbook that you're supposed to read. He wouldn't recommend, or this method wouldn't recommend, that you start with the first word and go from there and read the whole thing. No, what he would say is go back, go to the end and read the summary. Maybe there's a summary at the beginning, a summary at the end. Read those first. And what that does is it gives you a framework. And then, maybe you can just look at the headings throughout the chapter. So you know the summary, and you know the headings, and now what are you going to do? Well, you might ask some questions to yourself. You might think, what might this be about? Right? You might think, oh, I wonder if this will come up. I wonder if that will come up. And then you can go and speed read it. And as the information comes in, you sort of have somewhere to put it because you have that framework now. And that helps you remember, because remembering is about storage, and it gives you that storage system. So if you have to read quickly, look into the 3SQR method. That ends the chapter, and I will stop recording here.